Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're playing the Sibir with a full AA build. I was wondering how an AA build would do now that we've got the module damage rework, where you no longer have permanently destroyed modules. That's your main guns, that's torp tubes, but it also extends to secondaries and your AA mounts. One of the big problems with running a full AA build was that most of your AA was blown off your ship in the first 5-10 minutes of a battle. So putting a ton of points towards that didn't really make a lot of sense. And on top of that, you just weren't guaranteed carrier games. So you're wasting a lot of points that way. At least that's the way I saw it. Now, Sibir is rather excellent when there's no carrier, and with a carrier in the game, running a full AA build, let's see how we can do. This ship, though, is intentionally chosen for this. I wanted to see what maybe the most powerful version of a pushing brawling battleship is that is not detrimentally impacted by an AA build. You see, in the 6th upgrade slot with American battleships, that's your accuracy. So giving that up on an Ohio, a Montana, and trying to push with that just didn't sound very good to me. Running other battleships where that's their reload slot, well, they just aren't as good in a brawl because they won't have the fast heals, or perhaps they actually just don't gain a lot from this AA mod because it also buffs your secondary. Sibir is perfect for this because it wants to run a secondary build because these are incredible secondaries, and its AA is among the best in the game as far as battleships go. I wanted to run a battleship as well because a lot of carriers will know to stay away from the AA cruisers, especially if they realize that AA cruisers running D-Fire in a mostly AA build where they're losing a lot of planes. So notice just how much plane damage we're going to get here in the early stages of this match. We got a Malta and an Utrecht coming after us. And we do have some support, certainly. There is some solid AA on our own team next to us. So it's not exactly a one-on-one comparison, but I did find it interesting to take a look and see if these AA builds are worth running on certain ships. It really comes down to secondary builds. Don't worry as much about losing out on reload mod, or certainly if you're an American battleship, that accuracy mod is the way to go. But here, we're going to see the difference now. This new update, I would not have retained solid AA throughout this battle. This Malta is coming in, and Vermont is spamming HE at us for some reason. Okay, well, now we only have 96% of our AA left. 96 is decent, but that's going to go down very fast. I installed this mod just to show you an up-to-date look at what is going on with the secondary and AA mounts on my ship. 78 now. This was the problem. This was definitely the problem. This is the same as Kremlin AA, by the way. And this was one of the big issues with trying to push in a carrier game. Sure, you start with good AA, but that quickly gets blown off your ship and you're a sitting duck. The other reason I wanted to run a secondary brawling battleship is carriers can't really resist the temptation of striking a pushing battleship. One, because they're just closer, okay? This isn't like some, oh, the carrier's out to get you or anything like that. It just makes sense. The one guy who's actually pushing up while the rest of the team is staying further back, not in this game, notice everybody on my flank is pushing right with me. It was awesome, by the way, if you guys were playing in this one with me. Thank you for pushing with me. But it really does make sense from the carrier POV, right? Like, when the battleship pushes up, trying to brawl, they become an easy target. They're caught in a crossfire. You can drop your torps alongside them. They're not going to be able to maneuver fully. Otherwise, they give full broadside to your entire team if you're that carrier player. It makes sense. So that's, again, why I wanted to run something that is pushing. And Sibir is a great example of that. That AA defense expert within, like, the first 5 minutes of this battle starting, absolutely crazy. Down to 48% of our AA left, and some of those have actually been healing. We don't have a timer. Some feedback to Wargaming. It would be nice to have some more detailed statistics on how long it's going to take for some of these AA mounts to come back, secondary mounts as well. We can at least see it on the main guns and the torps, but I just don't know how long it's going to take. So keep your eye on that 48. You'll see it tick up here and there. Of course, this could all change as Wargaming is currently working on a carrier rework. Who knows how long that is going to take. But for now, it does seem like running a mostly AA-built secondary battleship that has good base AA, that is worth mentioning. Kremlin, Sibir, has some of the best Battleship AA in the entire game. 6.6 kilometers of range helps a ton for getting more damage in before those planes get to you. But the balance here is kind of interesting. Wargaming is, I think, unable to make it satisfying for either side, thanks to it being an automated system. I think that's what it comes down to here. It's very nice for the surface ships now to have our AA heal back over time. Notice we're up to 52% now. It's slowly coming back. There's 70. Okay. Nice chunk came back there. Must have been a full Vermont HE salvo that took out so many all at once. It takes a little bit for it to come back, but it does come back. So we can have this little reprieve, and we'll still be relatively strong against the carrier towards the late game. But since it's all automated, they can't make it too strong, otherwise the carrier is going to be countered by something completely out of the surface player's control. And I think that's why it's such a frustrating experience for a surface ship player, and if Wargaming was to tune AA up and give it really powerful values, it would be incredibly frustrating to play carrier, because then all the surface ships automatically would just fend you off instantly. It needs to be player versus player wargaming. You're just stuck in this position of trying to make a PvE system work in a PvP game. And while it is really, really nice to have my AA come back, I do think that manual control over this engagement would help so much. I love that you added manual control to secondaries this update with the new German cruiser line. I think more of that, less automated systems, would go such a long way in improving the gameplay that goes on in here. Having the automatic secondary damage can be a little bit frustrating. Remains to be seen. I still have to play against some of these new German cruisers, but I think more manual control is just more engaging. And I would apply that to the carrier interaction as well. Some of the frustration is that I can get singled out at times, certainly, but that can happen with smoked up cruiser divisions or something. You know, focus happens, but having no control over the engagement is where it gets really, really frustrating. Having all of my AA back for most of these carrier engagements does help quite a lot, as well as these secondary builds, which do tend to stick themselves out, right? It's very easy for a secondary brawling battleship to get overexcited like I am here. I'm intentionally pushing where I shouldn't. Most of my team is on the other flank. The enemy team has some decent crossfire here. We're in a little bit of trouble. If the carrier comes by, there is no way for me to continue maneuvering and do a just dodge, right? Otherwise, I'd be turning broadside to enemies, Sibir, Laria, Stalingrad, these kinds of things. We wouldn't want to do that anyway. So I'm kind of stuck in this angle, and having most of my AA or all of my AA for when that carrier comes back is a really, really good thing. So overall, this secondary auxiliary armament, even main armaments, not having them permanently knocked out is really, really good. As for speccing this build on other ships, I'm not so sure. You really would rather have a secondary build that also then can double dip on the AA, that synergy there. If you don't have a secondary build on your ship, so things like Schlieffen, Libertad, that kind of thing, it's maybe not worth taking that 6 upgrade slot, but certainly the 2-pointer and 3-pointer AA skills, the 2-pointer these days on battleships has been a bit of a must-have for me, since that also gives us a 40% reduction to our consumable cooldowns while our AA is active. That's been really, really helpful in getting back to some of these heals and damage controls on ships that aren't a Sibir that have all their healing up front. In this case, we're pretty much all on our own, and we took out that entire squad before that drop happened. Now, maybe he munched some flak, right? That's RNG, whether the flak puffs come out, where they are, if the carrier is willing to even try to dodge them, you know, things like that. But that's pretty good. In this case, 93% AA, Torp squad coming, and we're not going to quite take it out, I don't think, before he drops, but we're going to get a lot of them. Even this is a much, much better experience than it was last patch. Having most of your AA gone meant that not only that first drop would get through, but most of the time, the second and maybe third drops would be getting through by like the 10-minute mark in a game, especially if you've been HE spammed a little bit by like Battleship caliber HE. Certainly a very nice change, but I gotta say, it felt a little weird trying to queue into carriers while making this video. I did my absolute best to make sure there was more than 2 carriers in queue, which is insane. I never ever do that kind of thing. It's the opposite, in fact. And that comes down to, I don't want to waste commander points and so much of my build towards something that may not even show up. I've seen in World of Tanks, there's actually an option to choose your upgrade loadout at the beginning of battle. Something like that also might help people feel a little better when they get into a carrier game, where they have that option to select their build that has some AA on it. I don't know. Just thinking of ways to make it a little bit less frustrating to deal with carriers in this game. Certainly, yes, having all this AA back helps, but it really does want to be played on a ship that still takes advantage of the vast majority of these upgrades when there's no carrier in the battle. Like here, we're gonna have an excellent Sibir game. You know, Sibir is pretty crazy these days for pushing in this F key 20% better dispersion from the secondaries, getting you charged towards that. It is very, very powerful. But I have a secondary build, so I can take advantage of these upgrades. Something like cruisers, while running a full AA build, might prevent that carrier from getting their strikes through on you, depending on how close you are to the island and where they spawn their planes from, or how they get around that island. It's still a little bit awkward to spend that many points on a cruiser because it's a 2-pointer and then a 4-pointer for the AA skills on the cruiser side of things. They do have better AA base, but to spend so much on ships that need a lot of helps in survivability or maybe some extra damage, that kind of thing, on something that is not happening every battle these days, that's carrier games, and let alone carrier games where the carrier goes after you, right? A lot of carriers will just ignore some of these cruisers. I don't know. It feels really odd to put so many of your limited resources in your build towards something that, again, just does not happen all that often. So let me know in the comments below if there's other ships you want me to try with a full AA build. Sibir probably the best example of this, but there's plenty of ships with pretty strong AA, and if you do get into an AA, into a carrier game and the carrier goes after you, you can nuke out some planes. Most carriers should learn from that though, probably, and then just not go after you. And that in itself maybe is worth the points to you. I'm not sure. It's a tricky thing to know if that's worth doing. And while I did find some reasonable success running this build on Sibir, where the synergy is very, very good, it still was a little better when we clumped up our AA. In that first game where we pushed the flank with the Wisconsin and the Lartigue, well, that just added on to the AA power and kept us even safer from those planes. So it's still not the best to just go running around alone with this build. It's still best to clump up your AA and force the carrier to strike through multiple targets rather than going off on your own. And at that point, if you're clumping up playing as a team, do you need that extra AA build? For the odd game that you're going to get it, maybe it's just better off to go with a more standard damage, concealment, survivability focused build. And if you do run into carriers, then play that standoffish, clumped up AA overlapping bit way. And that's likely what I'll do going forward, but it was pretty interesting to see what Sibir was capable of, specifically because it is synergizing so well with these secondaries that go so crazy when you have the full DPM build. I didn't even recommend the full secondary build. I wanted main guns DPM, because most of the damage with this ship comes from those main guns and this F key. The secondaries already charge up this F key pretty quickly, even without this full secondary build. And while this is why you want that F key, you can get 2 salvos out of it pretty comfortably with reload mod. In this case, we didn't even need that. Oh my goodness. That 20% dispersion letting us perfectly target the bow citadel there. Poor Des Moines, man. That ship is struggling in these close range engagements. And yet that's where Des Moines wants to play. Oh man. That is a tough ship to play, although I do enjoy it. Certainly go check out the Des Moines video if you haven't. I have a blast playing that thing. Even though, yeah, it's got some pretty significant weaknesses these days. And for a ship like Des Moines or any of these other lighter cruisers that do need to play around island cover, well, if the carrier just flies around, right, it's not flying through nearly as much of your AA. Maybe that's why it works so well here on Sibir as too, because this ship can just sit open water, which forces the carrier to fly through the entire 6.6 kilometers of AA on this thing, where a cruiser sitting on an island, well, those carriers planes might just pop up a kilometer away from you over top of the island to strike you. And of course, you're not doing enough DPS to actually take them out then. Unfortunately, it really does seem to always come back to don't go off on your own in a carrier match, clump up your AA, stay together, play at the back of the map so you have room to maneuver without showing broadside and getting nuked, that kind of thing. Which is disappointing. That's not particularly interesting gameplay. I think this La Pampa baited me into those torps, by the way. Caught in a crossfire torps between La Pampa and Brisbane. Not where we want to be on such low HP here. Maybe we go down. We're shooting down quite a few Utrecht bombers before they actually land their strike. Certainly in that first example, we shot down most of them, which is another reason to maybe run some AA builds. Those airstrikes come very frequently still and are quite annoying. So maybe there's more value to this build than I think. It's certainly performed very, very well here with Sibir, and getting those secondary charge so quickly. That extra DPM getting me my F key even a little bit sooner to take out that Colombo. But we do end up going down eventually. Takes forever to actually finish off Sibir, thanks to that healing lasting so ridiculously long. So maybe this is a good build for Sibir. If you have it, definitely give it a go if you find the carriers coming after you. This can be a decent way to go, and you're not even handicapping yourself too badly when there isn't a carrier. Still getting an E in this one. Had to do the re-record so it doesn't show up. But 3k base XP, definitely an E in Sibir. The build that I was using did look a little bit funny since I needed to get that extra salvo out of our F key. So I really wanted AR. I really wanted the extra secondary range, of course, on a ship like this one. And then I also needed focus fire training to run the full AA build. Giving up concealment for that. Maybe not the best choice to give up, but if we are just full sending, then concealment maybe doesn't matter quite so much anyway. Getting up to 98 AA defense. Don't use these import stats as whether things are good or not. These numbers don't really mean a whole lot, but pretty solid continuous damage for 6.6 kilometers of range. And then sector reinforcement gets buffed by this focus fire training here too. Extra shell explosion, extra flak burst, which is where the majority of your damage comes from. That's how you're actually shooting planes down. The chip continuous damage, it's never enough to actually do enough DPS to finish off a plane squadron. So you need that bursty damage from the flak, which we are buffing a lot thanks to these two. And then, of course, running the 6th upgrade here. This is not just buffing those secondaries, but another 15% on the shell explosion damage and the continuous damage. No extra flak, though, because we don't have a defensive fire on this ship. Could be worth running on ships that do have defensive fire, but again, like, it's just so difficult to take that on, like, the American battleships, which some of them do get defensive fire. Wisconsin, Vermont. But giving up 11% dispersion, I can't justify that one, guys. I don't think I can do it. But this build here did include preventative maintenance, but it did not include auxiliary armaments. So some of those times where like that HE Vermont took the AA down below 50% left, yeah, it's that could have happened previously, especially since they buffed and kind of standardized AA mount health. Certainly Kremlin used to have some of the worst AA mount health in the entire game. That got improved a little while ago, and now everything's been standardized with this module rework, which is excellent. Not only for secondary builds, but for some AA torp builds, certainly taking huge advantage of that too. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. What ships do you want me to see me try this out with as well? There might be a few others that could be interesting. But thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.